totally sick. She went from 300 to 80 pounds. She had, I don't know, we saw her just before in a home.
Now I understand what he said. Because otherwise it didn't make sense.
They didn't want to take him in the army.
Well, no,
because he lost. They don't take them if there's only
Here's
one.
the story.
But he insisted.
No, Mom. Here's the story. He told us the story.
Today. He said
He told us the story, but now it makes sense. When there is only one boy left,
Right.
if the brother was killed in action,
Right.
the government allows him not to go into combat.
Right.
He was going for combat,
Right.
and he wanted to continue in combat.
Right. Oh.
But the government,
Would not allow.
but his parents had to sign to allow him to go to combat, and they refused to sign. So he went into intelligence. That's how.
That's why he wasn't intelligent.
He went to
and he
intelligence.
worked at the airport, and that was because she became really the shock to the system. They say they can do terrible things. Of course he did, and she took her 13 years to deteriorate. So when he married Vered, and she was still lying in a nursing home, and we went to see her. It was the last time we saw her. She died within about a year of that.
But you remember
Pardon?
You remember seeing her after he was killed?
Yeah, sure, of course. I saw her several
So
times.
a few times.
And she was lobotomated?
She was, no, mentally she was a very intelligent woman.
Right.
But you could never know. She refused to take, I don't know whether she had cancer. I don't know what happened. She refused to take drugs.
No.
She refused to take treatment. She believed into holistic stuff.
Now on this topic, I want you to clarify one more relation. Sonia.
Sonia?
One time I'd like to know.
Sonia's my first cousin.
I'd like to know.
Her mother,
I thought she was friends.
Sonia's mother, and my father
Wait.
were brother and sister.
Oh, no, they were
Wait.
related. I thought they were just friends.
Laser,
and Sonia's mother
and Sonia's mother.
were brother and sister.
Now,
They lived across the road. They lived across the road.
Laser was killed. We know the story.
Right.
He was killed. Now, it was his sister.
That's, pardon?
Not Sonia.
Sonia's mother was his sister.
Right.
She lived there in Krivitz.
She lived in Krivitz across the road.
Married?
The Nazis came in.
She was
They
single.
took her and a baby.
But she was married.
She was married to what's his name? His name was Gilbert. Her name was Gilbert. And he was the like mommy's brother-in-law, and he worked for Laser. He worked for Laser because the family was across the thing. Okay, so he worked for Laser. So the men ran away when the Germans were coming into town.
But
The men ran away.
Them geschossen Laser there.
Huh?
Them geschossen Laser right there.
They Schossen Laser. Don't forget, they came in 1939. 39 were the Russians that came in. They were the first ones that threw us out. But they didn't kill us. They threw us out of our house. But my father wasn't killed till what? 44, 43, or 44? 43. Okay, that he was given dispensation by the Germans. The Germans gave him a letter and said, we need his, because he made turpentine and tar for the war.
Right.
So he said, he can live.
Right.
But because we didn't want anybody warfen sich in die Egen, so he moved out on a farm, away on a farm, in the middle of nowhere, because that's where they made all the stuff.
Right.
That's where they cut the woods, and that's where they made the coal, and where they did all the stuff.
Right.
So that's where they walked in. It wasn't the Germans who killed them.
It was the
They
locals.
were the local people.
Okay.
Okay, they come in, they took him out of the house, and they killed him because that's what they were doing, the Lithuanians.
Okay. Now, Sonia's tata.
So Sonia's tate, so he went in hiding.
So 1 second. He was killed like Laser?
No, Sonia's tate came to Israel. He died here with Sonia. He came here to Sonia. Let me tell you, what happened was that the mother stayed behind. And she, by that time, they came in. Sonia's mother, with a baby. She had a little baby. And when the Germans came into town, she was walking on the street with the baby. And they killed her on the street holding the baby, with the baby, Sonia's mother. For some reason, Sonia's father took Sonia when he left to go with my father.
So, 1 second. When Laser moved out to the farm with Bubba Fredo.
That was, Laser moved out of the farm. First he ran away with Lebe and with Sonia.
Who's Lebe?
No.
Lebe was his brother-in-law.
Lebe is Gilbert.
Huh?
Gilbert.
Gilbert was the last name. His name was Lebe.
Oh.
And so he went, for some reason, he took Sonia, she was the older one, and they ran away. My mother and I were left behind.
So his wife and his daughter, his wife and one of his daughters were killed in the street.
Who's?
Yes, Gilbert.
Yes.
He had already run away.
He ran away with my father.
And Sonia.
And
Sonia.
Yeah.
Eventually Laser was killed.
No. So they ran away.
Right.
To hide. However, meanwhile they came in, the Germans. They lined us up on the town square, and when they figured that this was going to be the end. So they came to my mother. They locked us up.
Excuse me. In 1939, the Russians took over the village.
Right.
And then in 1941,
right,
the Germans attacked Russia, and they went into
right,
the village.
So they came in, and the townspeople lined us up, the local people lined us up in the square, and we didn't know what they were going to do with us. So a woman came to my mother and said to her, you know what, they're going to kill you all. Let me have your daughter. She wanted a daughter. And my mother was there with Shoma, with my brother. So she said, my mother stood for a minute and thought about it. She said, you're going to die anyways. She said, no, I don't think so. And for some reason they changed their mind. They didn't do nothing. But that night, we ran away.
Right.
And we went into one of these farms.
Right.
And so Sonia and Lebe went. However, they didn't stay with us on the farm. They went into the woods with the partisans. And they were in there for a while. They also came by to where Rochke was, hidden by the Polish woman, but it was too dangerous, so they left. And they went wandering in the woods, the two of them. Meanwhile, after they killed my father, we ran and walked the whole night, the snow up to here, that I remember it yesterday, until we found where they were,
right,
and that Goya. She took us in, and we stayed there probably about maybe 4, 5, 6 months. But they were getting suspicious. Germans used to come in.
So you moved on.
And they used to say, and so my mother was able to, the only thing she could take was a few gold pieces. And we had it hidden. And where can you hide it? Because they were looking for it. But my cousin Rachel, she's in New York, she had this very kinky hair. Very kinky, red hair, and she had it piled up on her head.
Now it's in the yellow room in the freezer.
So she,
The money now that her hair is thinning,
Yes.
it's in the freezer.
Yeah.
It became the yellow
No,
room.
so she hid
No,
the
I
money.
see it when
And we decided that we couldn't stay by the Panya, so they used to decided we had to move out. So we moved out into the woods, like everybody else. Everybody was traveling back and forth. This was, you'll see it, because they show you the zemlyanka that we had.
Now, Mommy,
Now,
when you were in the woods with the partisans or with the
Yeah.
people moving, how many people were in your group?
in where?
How many people were you? You said you were in the woods with how
Yeah,
many?
so that's, well, first of all, there was our original family,
No,
right?
no. Sachakol.
Oh, there were hundreds of thousands of people moving the partisans. That you want?
How many? You remember the movie Defiant or whatever?
Yeah.
That showed that the number was approximately 200.
I think first of all, there
Could
were
it be too big or it would attract
there were
attention?
partisans
How old were
everywhere.
you?
You're talking only about
How
the,
old were you?
You said you remember the snow. How old were you then?
well, it's easy to figure out, right? What was in 1943?
So you were
I
10
was
years
born
old.
in 34, so
I
that's
was 9
Yeah.
years old.
9 years old. I was old enough to know what was going on. Old enough
Yeah,
for
no.
sure.
That-
So when
that's
we
why.
went,
So do
they-
you remember Sonia as a girl? Do you remember Sonia as a...
Of course. So then we hooked up with Sonia in the woods.
Right.
And we had this money, and we wanted to build a zemlyanka. A zemlyanka is a bunker.
Right.
And they went to see a man that knew who we were. And they wanted to give him the money, I don't know, 20 or 40 things
Right.
of gold. And he didn't want to. His wife didn't want him to build a zemlyanka. So take all of us home,
And my mother's oldest sister, she went with my mother, because she knew the mother, and begged him